Part 147. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1463. After all, Chi Heiran was a child who grew up in a feudal family. Even though he didn't like concubines since he was a child because of his mother and aunt, he never felt that he would not take concubines. He could see clearly that the tragedies of the two families were not caused by the concubines Wu and Lu who disgusted him, but by his father and uncle's own misbehavior. He swore since he was a child that he would never spoil his concubine and destroy his wife after he got married, and he would hurt his wife and children's hearts regardless of whether he was a concubine or a concubine. So subconsciously, Chi Heiran felt that he would take concubines. But Mu Yangling didn't like him taking concubines, or she didn't like a third person being mixed between them. Chi Heiran is a person who keeps promises. He agreed to Mu Yangling's request in a flash, even if he regretted a little later. It is not easy to break his promise. But later, their relationship gradually deepened, and he went from throbbing at the beginning to joy, then to liking, and then from liking to love, and finally Mu Yangling became the most inseparable part of his life. He thought that if he separated from Mu Yangling, it would be equivalent to cutting out half of his heart with a knife. It's okay to die. If he is separated from life, he will definitely go crazy. But he knew that if he really couldn't control himself and put a third person between them, whether it was physically or psychologically, Aling would definitely reconcile with him cruelly. Even if she wants to gouge out a heart, she will use a knife. The price was too high. Chi Heiran didn't dare to gamble. Therefore, in the first few years of their marriage, even though it was difficult to meet each other when they were fighting abroad, and his subordinates and colleagues kept sending beauties to him, he didn't dare to go one step further. And sometimes he will be impulsive, and his eyes can't help chasing those beauties, but often the next moment he has a desire, Aling's figure will appear in his mind, and Chi Heiran feels a basin of cold water. I poured my head down, and I lost all my thoughts. Later, maybe he got used to it because he endured it, or maybe his feelings for Aling went deep into his bones, and he had a feeling that the sea was too difficult for water, except that Wushan is not a cloud. The beauties I saw were too lazy to even look sideways. However, when he was still young and just in love, he was actually reluctant to make that promise to Aling. As Zijin said, there are countless beautiful flowers in the world. It is one thing whether he can pick them off, but it is another thing to give his hands to others to bind them. But today, Chi Heiran is really thankful that when he was young, he impulsively made the promise of being a couple for a lifetime after seeing Aling's tears. It was because of that he could marry Aling, and it was because of that he felt the ultimate happiness in the world. Chi Heiran showed a happy smile at the setting sun that was about to fall, and Mu Yangling came over with an elbow, knocking him back to his senses, and said, "I'm asking you, when did you fall in love with me?" Chi Heiran fell on the grass with his hands on his waist, and wailed, "My waist, are you not afraid that I won't be able to use my strength anymore? Let's see where you cry at night." Mu Yangling blushed, and couldn't help stretching out his hands to pinch the soft flesh on his waist. "Don't pretend to me, I don't know how hard I'm using it. What's the difference between poking you with a finger?" Seeing that she was annoyed, Chi Heiran immediately got up with a smile, stretched out his arms to hug her and leaned into her ear and said, "Master, aren't you worrying too much? It's a waste of energy when we go out to play, so I can't be the same as before at night. I should pay more attention to maintenance." Mu Yangling's ears were red, and he went to look at the servant with a guilty conscience, and said in a low voice, "Keep your voice down, what are you talking about in broad daylight?" Chi Heiran didn't care at all and said, "We are husband and wife, what are we afraid of?" He generously picked up Mu Yangling and put her on his lap, holding her like a child. When the guards and servants saw the two masters embracing each other, they avoided it, and the servants took out their things and started to build the tent, pretending that they didn't see the stickiness of the two masters. The guards also wanted to pretend not to see, but they had to protect the two masters. so they could only look here solemnly, pretending not to see their hugging movements. Anyway, it's not the first time, they've gotten used to it. Mu Yangling's face turned redder, and Chi Heiran touched her face and said softly, maybe it was the military disaster that year, or it might be the first time we met. Chi Heiran recalled when he met Mu Yangling for the first time, and said in a low voice, when we first met, I thought you were a good person, but in fact, you were the first person Zijin and I met on our way to the north to be nice to us regardless of reward. Chi Heiran and Fan Zijin had naturally been helped by others, but the premise was that they helped others, and only those who were helped by them would help them. But Mu Yangling was different. He and Fan Zijin were in a panic when they first met, and her situation was not much better, but she was able to reach out to help them. At that time, Chi Heiran was more grateful to Mu Yangling and a kind of love of a big brother for a little sister. But soon, he saw another side of Mu Yangling. Jin Bing sneaked into Xing Zhou mansion, he led the troops to rescue, and watched her lead the enemy into the forest, step by step, and taught the villagers to destroy the enemy at a very small cost. At that time, she was covered in blood, her hair was messy, and her eyes were full of fierce killing intent, but he saw his heart beating violently. Afterwards he mentioned this matter to Fan Zijin, and Zijin said that Aling had a deep mind, his background was a mystery, he was cruel and merciless, and it was not enough to have a deep friendship with him. But he just couldn't forget the girl who smiled and threw the pheasant and the hare to her, and she couldn't forget that she picked up the butcher's knife in order to give the villagers a chance of life. Obviously she is only 9 years old, she is the group of people who should be protected the most, but she protects her family, relatives, and friends instead. Chi Heiran, who had always longed for the power to protect the people he cared about, liked Mu Yangling even more, and this liking soon became out of control because of being together day and night. Chi Heiran looked at Mu Yangling affectionately and said, Aling, our fate may have been destined in the previous life, that's why I fell in love with you at first sight. Mu Yangling didn't believe it, because there was no such person as Chi Heiran by her side in her previous life, so Mu Yangling tilted her head and thought for a while, and said, maybe it's because I was born beautiful. Conquered by my beauty, and later subdued by my virtue. Chi Heiran said, Master finally understands why these children are a little overconfident. It turned out to be inherited from you. It's the truth. Even if you admit it, I won't make fun of you for not seeing anyone. Chi Heiran was overjoyed, couldn't help laughing, pinched his wife's face and nodded, okay, I admit it, but just tell me this, don't say it in front of outsiders. In the past, Aling was very strict and rarely boasted. Could it be that he got used to being naughty with a few children, so he learned this skill? But seeing Aling saying these words in a serious manner, Chi Heiran almost rolled his stomach from laughing. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1464. The couple returned to Beijing just before the Chinese New Year, and received a letter from the Guangzhou steward as soon as the Chinese New Year was over, informing them that all matters concerning going to sea had been settled. Chi Heiran immediately happily took Mu Yangling on board and went out to sea. He knows that the sea is tough, and the time of each voyage is not too long. When they encounter beautiful islands, they will go ashore to watch and play for a while, and they will stay for a few days when they are interested. The longest time they lived on a small island in the South China Sea. For almost 2 months. It was an island with beautiful scenery and silver-white sandy beaches. As soon as they approached the shore in a small boat, the seabirds living on the shore flew up in groups with fluttering wings. Up. And there are still many big crabs and lobsters crawling in the crevices of the reef, and clumps of kelp washed ashore by the sea. Chi Heiran couldn't help sighing when he saw it, the products are so rich, is there no one to rush to the sea? He has lived in Guangzhou and knows that many people go to catch the sea after the tide goes out every day. Fish, shrimp, crab, kelp, and even some shells are the targets of the people who go to sea. There was no one on that island, so Mu Yangling and Chi Heiran simply wandered around the island, found several kinds of fruits they had never seen before, and transplanted some saplings after testing that they were non-toxic. Besides, Mu Yangling also found some crops that Daki didn't have. The two lived on the island for 2 months. If it weren't for the letters from Tiger Head and Little Lion crying every 3 days to see them, the couple would still not be willing to leave the island. Although they left, the couple marked the location of the island on the chart and planned to come back later. They had plenty of time. Chi Heiran thought he could come anytime, but it was 5 years later when he set foot on this island again, and it was not just their husband and wife who came here to play, but also Chi Ziyuan and Fan Zijin. Chi Heiran had just met the family of the second son and the third son, and when he landed, he planned to let people rest and salute, and wanted to take Mu Yangling to a farther place. Who knew that he received the news that Chi Ziyuan was seriously ill? The couple didn't dare to delay, and hurried back to the capital. While rushing back, he received 6 gold medals urged by Fan Zijin, and he knew that if his elder brother hadn't been in danger, he would not have done so. Chi Heiran once thought that he would not see his eldest brother for the last time, so when Chi Heiran rushed into the emperor's bedroom, he couldn't help but burst into tears. The man did not flick his tears lightly, but he didn't reach the point of sadness. Chi Heiran couldn't stop his tears when he saw his elder brother who was so ill on the dragon bed. Many people thought that the emperor might not survive, but who knew that Chi Ziyuan not only survived the catastrophe, but was also persuaded by Mu Yangling to sit in Xiaobao, and directly become the emperor to take care of his body. Seeing that his elder brother was out of danger, Chi Heiran didn't dare to go out to sea immediately, but just circled around the capital. He was afraid that he would be too far away from his elder brother, and would not be able to come back in time if something happened. Who knew that Chi Ziyuan seemed to have lost his mind after taking the Zen position? Not only did his illness gradually heal, but his body and spirit also became better and better. In the end, he took Li Jinghua with him and ran away to the north. The euphemistic name is to revisit the old place, to go back to the land of long seeing. Chi Heiran couldn't help curling his lips, and even took Mu Yangling on a trip, but he didn't dare to stay too far away. If Chi Ziyuan went to the north, he would go to the northwest. If Chi Ziyuan went to the west, he would go in the southwest area. In short, they will not be too far away from each other, but they can also play their own games. Chi Heiran wanted to play with his elder brother, but Chi Ziyuan seemed to hate his younger brother swaying in front of him. Every time Chi Heiran mentioned the topic, he refused in disgust. Let Chi Heiran go as far as possible, don't disturb him and the queen's 2-person world. If he hadn't been able to see his elder brother every 3 or 4 months, he would have suspected that his elder brother was dead. He had written this letter a long time ago to fool him. But the fact is that his elder brother is getting healthier and more disgusted with him. But Chi Ziyuan always begs him, such as going to sea. When Chi Heiran was working in Guangdong, he got a lot of sponsorship from maritime merchants and opened a sailing school. A considerable part of the talents trained in it entered his sailing workshop and built many high-quality seagoing ships. Of course, this sail workshop is not owned by him alone. It is still a joint venture between 3 companies. Chi Ziyuan and Fan Zijin both have a share, but even as shareholders, they don't just want a seagoing ship. Not to mention that the cost of building a ship is huge, but it takes a lot of time. It took 3.5 years for Chi Heiran to take Mu Yangling on a romantic trip to the sea, and it took another year to test its stability and improve it. The various facilities on the ship are specially set up for the couple. The room is spacious and bright, the single kitchen is twice the size of a general sea ship, and the safety facilities are of the highest level. The sea ship is equipped with 2 cannons, and various living and safety facilities are at the highest level in the world today. In order to build this ship, Chi Heiran not only spent all his private money, but also borrowed a whole lot of debt from Fan Zijin. In the end, when the family was separated, Mu Yangling couldn't see it and took out the money to pay it back for him. This shows how rare this ship is. So when Qi Ziyuan was tired of playing in the country and wanted to go to sea, the first thing he thought of was Qi Heiran. It just so happened that Fan Zijin had just resigned from office, and when he heard that his eldest cousin wanted to go to sea, he packed up his burdens when he returned home, and dragged Xiao Xia to follow suit. Qi Heiran had this in mind when he designed the ship. The cabins on the second floor are all arranged in the same way. There are 5 cabins in total. Except for the main cabin, which is the largest, the other 4 cabins are slightly inferior. Qi Heiran triumphantly led a group of people to visit the complete ship, then gave up the main cabin to Qi Ziyuan, and took Mu Yangling to live in another room. He said with a proud face, "This ship is going to sea. Comfortable, I spent nearly 500,000 taels of silver, let alone Daki, it is the only one in the whole world, as long as there is no big storm, nothing will happen." The older Qi Ziyuan was, the more he could not get used to his younger brother's proud face, and said flatly, "I heard that you went bankrupt to build this ship? And you borrowed a whole lot of foreign debt." Qi Heiran glanced at Mu Yangling with a guilty conscience, leaned into his elder brother's ear and whispered, "Brother, I have paid back all the money, why are you mentioning this when you have nothing to do? I will take you to see the chart." Qi Ziyuan said indifferently, "But I heard that you used Aling's private house to pay back. I know you are fun, but there is no need to spend your daughter-in-law's money for pleasure." He turned his head and said to Mu Yangling, "Don't get too used to him, I will pay back the money he owes Zijin, it's not good to keep asking my brother to cheat you." Qi Ziyuan became the supreme emperor, he gave the inner treasury to Xiaobao, but also allocated a lot of things from the inner treasury to him as a private house, and even more property in his hands. Before he was the emperor, he didn't dare to spend more money. He was afraid that something would happen to the country, and the treasury would not be able to make up the money, so he had to support 1 or 2 from the internal treasury, so he was extremely frugal. He had to calculate the palace repairs. After Qi Ziyuan became the throne, the number of times the palace was repaired could be counted in the palm of his hand. Come here, and the cost is very low, and you can win the list of the most frugal emperors in history. But after he was not the emperor, he became the emperor who spread wealth, spending a lot of money generously. In the past, he didn't dare to let go when rewarding people, but now he would send something to his younger brother and cousin from time to time, but now, Qi Heiran owed Fan Zijin 200,000 taels of silver, and he said he would pay it back for him without blinking an eye. Incredibly. Mu Yangling was also startled, blinked, and said, "But I have already returned the money to Zijin." Qi Ziyuan waved his hand generously, "It's okay, it's the same to give you the money. The children are all separated, and the money is your private house. Heiran has hands and feet. No matter how bad it is, there is still my brother here. How can I spend it? What about the daughter-in-law's private money?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1465. Mu Yangling laughed, "Brother, if you want to give Heiran money, just say so. You don't need to find these reasons. Although I took the money, it is not my private house, it is shared by our husband and wife." Qi Ziyuan curled his lips, "You don't need to save face for him. He is not proficient in other things except for his talent in war. Without you, he would have such a large family fortune." Qi Heiran nodded again and again, and secretly winked at Mu Yangling, "Yes, yes, it was all earned by you, even if it is your private house." Mu Yangling was very principled, he was unwilling to take advantage of Qi Ziyuan, and insisted not to take his money. Seeing him at the side, Fan Zijin couldn't help but said, "Give me whatever money you have, I don't mind it." Chi Xiaoyuan bent his fingers and tapped him on the head, and said with a smile, "You just picked out a box of treasures from my private treasury a while ago, aren't you satisfied?" Fan Zijian couldn't help rolling his eyes. No matter how precious those things are, they're not worth 200,000 taels. Besides, don't you all hate money? I don't. The pushback ended with Fan Zijian's shameless insertion. Chi Xiaoyuan didn't say whether he would give the money or not, or who it was for. He walked back to his cabin with his hands behind his back, closing the door to cut off everyone's eyes. Chi Heiran clutched his chest and said to Mu Yangling with aching heart, "A Ling, since elder brother wants to give us money, why don't you accept it? This is 200,000 taels." In order to raise money for the shipbuilding, he not only borrowed foreign debts from Fan Zijian, but also sold his private house and several collections in exchange for money, just to surprise Mu Yangling. Although Chi Heiran spends money lavishly, money is still a very important treasure to him. But Mu Yangling said, "We are not short of money, why do we need Big Brother?" Chi Heiran said seriously, "To make Big Brother happy," he shouted. "You didn't see how disappointed Big Brother was when you didn't want the money, even if it was for Big Brother's happiness, you just borrow the money." So Chi Xiaoyuan pursed his lips because she didn't accept the money he sent over? What is wrong with this? It's not 1 or 200 taels, it's 200,000 taels. When did silver become so cheap in Daki? Fan Zijian coughed lightly, cast a sidelong glance at Mu Yangling, and said calmly, "Big cousin is making up for it. If he gives it to you, then you can continue. That way he will be happy. Anyway, he is not the emperor now, and the things in the private treasury don't matter, use it however you want." Chi Xiaoyuan used his younger brother and cousin's money to fight the country and build the Great Qi. Intellectually, he gave his younger brother and cousin the hereditary throne, which can be regarded as a reward. But emotionally, he just feels that he owes them a lot, so he likes to give Fan Zijian some antique calligraphy and paintings, some rare books and the like from time to time, and likes to give his brother a few thousand taels of silver as pocket money from time to time. Since becoming the supreme emperor and being able to dispose of the assets under his name as he pleases, Chi Xiaoyuan has the feeling of being an elder brother more than 30 years ago again. Therefore, as soon as he boarded the boat, Chi Xiaoyuan knew that it cost a lot when he saw the layout above. My younger brother has never been restrained in spending money, so he has never let go of his hand. It is not a secret that he borrowed money to build this ship, so he felt sore and wanted to send his brother 200,000 taels with a wave of his hand. He also paid for his sister-in-law's private house. No matter how the boat was built by his brother as a gift to his sister-in-law, he couldn't ask his sister-in-law to pay for it in the end. The younger brother doesn't show it on the face, but he doesn't necessarily feel uncomfortable in his heart. Who knew that Mu Yangling would not accept his money? Chi Xiaoyuan was very depressed. Regarding the fact that the daughter-in-law had to pay nearly half of the gift for his daughter-in-law, Chi Heiran didn't feel very uncomfortable. He was just a little worried when he saw his eldest brother returning to the cabin without saying a word. Mu Yangling understood, and asked in a low voice, "So I did something bad?" "No," Chi Heiran took her hand to comfort her and said, "You did the right thing. Logically, we really can't take the big brother's money, it's still such a large sum of money, but if he gives it to you next time, it will be fine, go ahead. Just take it for him, and we'll give it to him when the elder brother needs it." Chi Heiran said in a low voice, "I think it's very uncomfortable for the elder brother to hold the money in his hand." Chi Xiaoyuan was under too much restraint in the past, although he was an emperor, but because he cared about the world, he was unwilling to eat extravagant meals, let alone spend money from the internal treasury as he wished. It can be said that when Chi Xiaoyuan was the emperor's internal treasury was equivalent to Daki's second treasury. But now he can control the things in his private treasury as he likes, but he has always been frugal, and he doesn't know how to spend the things in it, and he feels ashamed of his brother and cousin, so he keeps putting things out deliver. Of course, Chi Xiu, who is keen on being the emperor of spreading wealth, is far more than just giving things to Chi Heiran and Fan Zijian. He also likes to reward other people, such as the guards around him, former heroes and so on. Chi Heiran felt that instead of letting the elder brother distribute all the things to others, it would be better to have them all in his hands. His elder brother is going to travel around. With his temperament, he can't use the money from the treasury, nor will he interfere with the emperor's internal treasury, let alone reach out to his sons. It can be said that his expenses are almost it all comes from Niaku and the assets under his name. But according to the speed at which Big Brother is distributing money, who knows how long these things will last. In any case, he is always too emperor, and the quality of life away from home cannot be too bad, not to mention there is a queen, so the expenses are quite a lot. Chi Heiran has always wanted to help his elder brother manage his money bag after seeing how quickly he spread his money. Of course, he has no such ability, because it is difficult for him to keep his money, but he still has Ling by his side. Chi Heiran said to Mu Yangling in a low voice, "We don't really want Big Brother's money, we take it first and then save it for him." Chi Heiran chuckled, "Brother has given me a lot of money in the past 4 or 5 years, and if he gives us another 200,000, his money will be almost gone." Mu Yangling reached out to hold his cheeks, and said, "Don't laugh like that, you look too bad." Those who didn't know thought that Chi Heiran was trying to seize his brother's property. Chi Heiran put away the smile on his face, looked at his wife seriously and said, "So, do you look like a good person?" Mu Yangling couldn't help but burst out laughing. Chi Heiran turned around blankly, and knocked on his eldest brother's door seriously. Chi Ziyuan was depressed, seeing his younger brother's expression turned pale. He raised his eyelids and looked at him lightly, and asked, "What's the matter?" Li Jinghua got up with a smile and said, "You brothers are chatting, I will make tea for you." "Sister-in-law, please," Chi Heiran nodded solemnly. Seeing his serious face, Chi Ziyuan couldn't help putting away the indifference on his face, and asked, "What happened?" Chi Heiran waited for Li Jinghua to close the hatch, then sneaked up to his elder brother, lowered his voice and said, "Brother, do you think it's worth giving me 200,000 taels?" Chi Ziyuan choked for a while before looking him up and down and asking, "You want money?" Chi Heiran nodded bluntly. Chi Ziyuan asked, "What do you want money for? Don't you have a property in your hands? You should have a lot of money in your hands." "It's a lot, but the money is in Aling's hands. She didn't wrong me for food, clothing, housing, and transportation, but it's okay to buy more expensive things," Chi Heiran said pitifully, but Chi Ziyuan was indifferent, and asked lightly, "For example?" Chi Heiran only blinked from Chi Ziyuan, and said after a while, "Brother, do you know where the 300,000 cash I used to build the ship came from?" "I know, you have some of your own private house, sold some loot, and borrowed some from your 4 sons, Chi Ziyuan pouted at this point, and said, "You, the most fatherly of all, are useless enough to spend money. I have to reach out and ask my sons." Chi Heiran complained, "That's not because Aling is strict. If you ask me to manage it well, otherwise with your wide hands, I'm afraid no amount of money will be enough for you to squander, let alone earn such a large family fortune for a few children. You just say that you want money. What are you doing? Don't beat around the bush with me." Chi Heiran held back for a long time before he could utter a sentence, "Use it for business. The reborn wife is farming." Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1466. Chi Ziyuan stared at him for a while, but Chi Heiran stared back with widened eyes, not guilty at all. Chi Ziyuan waved his hand and said, "Okay, I'll give it to you, but if you lose money, it's gone, and you don't have to pay back the money." Chi Heiran immediately said with a smile, "Don't worry, big brother, I won't take advantage of you for nothing. 200,000 taels will count as your shareholding, and I will give you dividends every year in the future. Chi Heiran really used money to do business. He knew that his elder brother had lost his hands recently and couldn't keep the money. Instead of doing this, he might as well leave it to someone else to manage it. In the future, he would have some income every year, and it would be cheaper for his elder brother to do what he wanted to do. Chi Heiran also doesn't know how to do business, but he knows many people who know how to do business. He got 200,000 taels, and directly invested 100,000 taels into the Zhou family's maritime trade business. As long as he can come back safely, he will make money. And the remaining 100,000 was invested in Fan Zijian's bank and received interest directly. Qi Ziyuan only reached out to ask his younger brother for money when he thought he was fun but had no capital. It was a long time later when he realized that his younger brother was really investing in him. At that time, he could get a lot of dividends every year. Well, with this money, he and the queen can go wherever they want, and even if they want to go to sea, they can rent a whole boat by themselves, so they don't have to rub against their younger brother's boat. Chi Heiran didn't know that the first independent investment in his life turned out to be so smooth, so he couldn't be happier. This made him very proud in front of Mu Yangling. You all say that I have no talent in business and can't make money and save money, but look, how is this business doing? Mu Yangling praised him, gave him a thumbs up and said, you have a unique vision. Chi Heiran was even more proud. Naturally, this is also a long time later. At this time, Chi Heiran is driving towards the sea with his brother and sister-in-law. The group first went to see the beautiful island that Chi Heiran and Mu Yangling discovered last time. After staying for half a month, I continued westward. I saw beautiful islands along the way, and I went up to visit the inhabited land. As a ruler, Qi Ziyuan is also very curious and concerned about the ruling system of foreigners and the living conditions of foreign people. The group went ashore as merchants to communicate with the natives, and it was 8 months before they returned to Daki from the sea. Qi Ziyuan concluded, in terms of scenery, each country is different, but Daki has a vast territory, and many scenery can be seen even if you don't go to sea. In terms of humanities and products, there are not as many countries as Daki. So he thinks it's enough to go out and have a look. If he wants to play in the future, he should play in Daki. Daki is so big, and it will take him a long time to walk and live in every place. Fan Zijian nodded approvingly, and invited Chi Heiran. I would also like to go around Daki. I wonder if you would like to go with me. Chi Heiran nodded without even thinking about it, nodded happily and said, okay, okay. Mu Yangling also had no objection, and everyone looked at Qi Ziyuan one after another. Qi Ziyuan hesitated for a moment, but finally waved his hands and said, you guys go, I prefer to play by myself, and I will find you when I am interested. Mu Yangling looked at Li Jinghua pursing her lips and smiling. Li Jinghua's face turned red, and she gave her a sneaky look. Qi Ziyuan also saw Mu Yangling's gaze, and his face was also flushed, but he said with a serious face, okay, everyone is tired after drifting at sea for so long, go home and rest. Qi Heiran was a little disappointed, so he leaned into Mu Yangling's ear and complained at night, it's true, big brother, we all go out to play, wouldn't it be better to be together? He wants to be alone with his sister-in-law, and we don't want to disturb them. Mu Yangling sighed, that's because he's not thick-skinned enough. Qi Heiran nodded habitually, and only realized something was wrong after nodding, and immediately pressed his wife to tickle, and said through gritted teeth, are you saying you have a thick skin? Mu Yangling giggled, do you dare to say that you are not thick-skinned? Qi Heiran's face is really thick, no matter how Qi Ziyuan and Fan Zijian get along with their wives in private, at least in the presence of a third person, the husband and wife are always 3 steps away from each other, and men and women are separated when playing. Not far, but certainly not much communication. Unlike Qi Heiran, no matter whether there is a third person present, he will always walk by Mu Yangling's side, and sometimes he can't help holding her hand and walking together. When he gets excited, he completely ignores what others think, directly going to paint for Mu Yangling. Fan Zijian couldn't help gnashing his teeth even if Fan Zijian had a beautiful wife by his side. Not to mention the guards who traveled all the way, everyone hated him so much, they felt that Prince Rong was too shameless to openly show affection in broad daylight. Mu Yangling felt that even in modern times, she couldn't live a better life than she is now. Ever since Beizu got married, their husband and wife have lived their lives as they please. At the beginning, they still cared about the children at home, but because the children were staying in different places, the caring existed before. After the trip, they can also stop by to see the children. For example, when they went to Lingnan, they would go around to Guangzhou, and then go out to see the tiger head and the little lion, and live with them for half a year or a year. From time to time, he will return to the capital, live with Xiaoxiang and Beizu for a year or two, and then go out. What really made Mu Yangling feel bad was probably Qi Heiran's growing temper. Old boy, perhaps because of this, Qi Heiran's temper is getting worse and worse, and he finds excuses to argue with Mu Yangling every now and then, and he has to force Mu Yangling to scold him to be comfortable, and even treat his little great-grandsons. The euphemistic name is, beating is pain, scolding is love. It caused several great-grandsons to fight and swear at a young age, and the parents of the children almost ran away, but they couldn't do anything for the noble and senior ancestors. What Mu Yangling thought was bad, Qi Heiran thought it was the best. They are getting old, and it is impossible to go out to visit mountains and rivers like before. They can only walk around their own manor or around the capital. If they don't find something to do, how boring is it to eat and sleep every day? When Aling was young, she was lively and active, but when she was old, she always liked to lean on the wicker chair with a book in her hand to read, but after sitting for a long time, she would inevitably feel unwell. If he didn't tease her to move around, how could she live a long and healthy life? Qi Heiran felt that he was worried about his wife's health, and the next day he was so unwavering that Mu Yangling got up from the rattan chair and kicked him. Qi Heiran felt that he was strong in martial arts and in good health, so he would definitely live longer than Mu Yangling. He didn't want to live alone for too long, and it was impossible for a man to harm himself, so he could only make Aling healthier. But unexpectedly, Qi Heiran fell ill in bed before Mu Yangling. Seeing Mu Yangling brewing medicine for him, Qi Heiran came back to his senses. It turned out that he was 3 years older than Aling. Does that mean he will die first? Qi Heiran cried while grabbing Mu Yangling's hand. Mu Yangling hurriedly asked, "What's the matter, what's the matter, is there something uncomfortable?" The imperial physicians waiting in the room also nervously gathered around and looked at Qi Heiran anxiously, for fear that something might happen to the old prince. Qi Heiran tugged at Mu Yangling's sleeve to wipe away his tears, looked at the imperial physician with a sullen face, and said, "You must cure this king, no matter what method you use. In short, the lord must live longer than the princess. The princess will not die for a day. Then the king cannot die." The imperial doctors opened their mouths wide and looked at Qi Heiran and Mu Yangling in shock. Didn't they say that the two couples are deeply affectionate and very affectionate? It doesn't sound like affection, but rather a vendetta. Mu Yangling also stared at Qi Heiran with wide eyes, reached out and touched his forehead, and asked, "How did you come up with such a weird idea?" Qi Heiran pulled her hand down, looked at her seriously and said, "Master is serious. If I die first, how sad will you be if I leave you alone in this world? Or should you die first, and wait for Master to finish our aftermath, I will accompany you." Qi Heiran's voice gradually sank, and he said sadly, "Brother and Zijian both left first, you were so sad before, how sad should you be when I leave?" The imperial physicians felt very sore for a moment, they looked at each other and quietly retreated, but Qi Heiran's subsequent voice still came clearly, "Don't be afraid of death, we have lived for so long, what should be seen in this world, should not we who have seen it all have experienced it, and our children and grandchildren will prosper, so what regrets do we have? Mu Yangling was amused for a moment, but helpless, more moved. She suppressed the tears that were about to fall, lay directly on his chest, listened to the strong heartbeat in his chest, and whispered, "Fool, you die first. I'm sad, don't you feel sad when I die first?" When Chi Ziyuan and Fan Zijin passed away due to illness, although she was heartbroken, Chi Heiran was the one who hurt the most and suffered the most. At that time, he was ill twice, especially when Zijin passed away, he almost didn't get over it. Chi Heiran didn't want her to be sad, so why would she? Mu Yangling lay on his chest, stretched out his hand to hold his hand, and said with a tearful smile, "Life and death are fate, why don't we make an agreement? No matter who dies first, we must wait for the other person on the Nahi Bridge, the one who lives. Don't be too sad, okay?" Chi Heiran pouted childishly. He still wanted Mu Yangling to die first. He couldn't explain why, but he just thought that if he died first, Aling would die of grief. But life and death are indeed not decided by Chi Heiran. For the first time in his life, he cooperated with the imperial physicians incomparably with medicine and food, but his body was still weakening rapidly. The imperial physicians were also helpless, because Chi Heiran, like Fan Zijin, was not suffering from a sudden illness, but was old. Sickness can be cured, but old age cannot be cured. The imperial physicians felt that if the old prince insisted on dying after the old princess, there was only one way, that is, the old princess died first. But Mu Yangling seemed to be in good health. Although she was a lot haggard because of taking care of Chi Heiran, she was still a very healthy old lady. She didn't look like she was going to die at all. Chi Heiran also saw that his time was coming, he could not support his health and died behind his wife, so he began to hold Mu Yangling's hand and said, "Aling, if the master leaves, you have to help me take care of it. The weapons in the arsenal should be wiped and polished every other day, so as not to let them rust. And those ponies in my grandfather's stable, you have to take a look at them from time to time, don't let a few bastards wipe them out." Avoiding Mu Yangling, he called a few children to the bed and asked them to take care of Mu Yangling. After he left, he would take time to make her happy every day, take her out for a walk, and not allow her to be alone. Mu Yangling burst into tears when he heard it outside, but he didn't reveal anything when he went in to take care of Chi Heiran. When feeding him medicine, he deliberately disliked him and said, "The children are very annoying, they always come to me to show love, the family property they've already made a deal, even if they come to pester me, I don't have many good things to give them." Chi Heiran smiled reassuringly, "It's because they are filial to you, why is it for your private house?" The children were filial to Mu Yangling. Chi Heiran finally felt relieved, he looked at Mu Yangling with nostalgia, and slowly closed his eyes. Mu Yangling held a piece of candy in her hand to get rid of the bitter taste in his mouth. Seeing that he closed his eyes as if he was asleep, her eye circles turned red, and she touched his neck with trembling fingers, and then withdrew her hand after a while. Leaning slowly on his chest, tears fell like rain. In fact, to be accompanied by this person in this life, it is not in vain to come to this world for a while, and it is worthwhile to bring along the previous life. When the servants outside the house noticed something was wrong, the bodies of both of them were slightly cold, and the girl and mother-in-law were so frightened that they scrambled and called the imperial doctor. The big and small masters of the palace also came quickly, and seeing Mu Yangling leaning on Chi Heiran's chest, both of them had smiles on their faces, their hearts were sore and painful at the moment, and they couldn't help crying bitterly. The imperial doctors checked and came to the same conclusion, the old prince passed away first, and the old princess passed away later, but don't worry, young princes, both of them passed away peacefully and without pain. Everyone thinks that Mu Yangling died for love, and everyone in the world thinks that this princess is very affectionate and sexual, so it's no wonder that the prince has a deep affection for her.